Christensen of Denmark, he too will be in this with enormous confidence.
He really does. Axel van Christensen was a runaway victor last year. 25 seconds his leading margin, but there's no way these men are going to let Axel van Christensen run away like they did last year in Dublin.
Well, the first 300 metres is dead straight. That should be lightning quick on this hard going. I came here on Friday and walked around the course. It was like a quagmire. It was really muddy and squelchy underfoot. I wished I'd brought my Wellington boots. I hadn't, but as they get underway for this men's under-20 race here in Turin, in La Mandria Park, we are wondering if the ground will be a little bit challenging and tough on the ankles because it is so hard and frozen rock solid. Good going compared with very squelchy ground where you can slip and slide and not really great much grip. But this is the other extreme and it has its negatives.
It really does. You can see these men sprinting to try and get into pole position. As you said, Tim, round about 600 metres is wide and flat, and then they start very quickly twisting and turning up towards the castle. So it's super important to get yourself in a good position. You can see the two Danish athletes running side by side, Axel van Christensen and Joel Ibler Lelesso. They've done really well to get themselves to the front of this field because it's technical, and if you were caught behind athletes when we come down the hill out of the castle, I really think you could get yourself in trouble. You could get yourself isolated from the front of this pack really early on. So I think what we're looking for in these opening 2 or 3 minutes is have all the favourites got themselves up into this top 10 or so.
Well, still on the flat here. We reckon it's about 700 metres to the bottom of the hill, and then it's a steady climb. It's not really steep, but it has several sort of levels, little climbs within the hill itself. And then they get up to the castle here in La Mandria Park as they negotiate this first little dog leg, and then they'll swing left in about 50 metres and start the climb. And then they get up into the castle, and you'll see they actually run through a museum. There's been boarding put down with synthetic grass on top of it. Quite astonishing. There's been a lot of comments on social media about how bizarre it is. 1 or 2 people think it might be slightly dangerous, but we shall see. But I suppose this hill, Hannah, will separate them pretty quickly, won't it? Because some people will really attack this first hill and try and get a gap.
And we can already see a group of 5 there. I was worried when you look back at that big pack behind. There is a narrow doorway. I'd urge anyone to go and check out Tim Hutchings' Twitter. Brilliant preview of the course, but there is a narrow doorway coming up. But we're hoping that this first hill, look how steep that is. And there's Rabbi. I was thinking Rabbi hadn't quite made this first group. The tall Norwegian athlete is a little bit further back, and that's worrying for me. They've got 4 long laps, so there's a bit of time to sort themselves out, but they really do not want to lose sight of some of the athletes at the front of this group. It's almost, we've talked about how the steeplechasers might fare well on a technical course, and similar to a steeplechase, I think you want to be able to sight this downhill. You don't want to be worrying about athletes in front of you. You want to have a clear look so you can just go hell for leather through this technical section.
They go through that gate, now they swing right, and you'll see them go through the door and into the castle straight for about 50 metres through here. That is a museum. Look at those glorious old carriages on synthetic grass. So it's central heating in there, and then out the front door of the castle, back outside. They're only in there for about 10 seconds. Back outside, as Barnicott there is up in that leading quartet for Great Britain. And then there's long sweeping down the hill. We reckon from the door coming out of the castle to the finish line on the last lap, mark your cards, it's about 470, 480 metres. But this is quick running here. The sun, of course, will start melting away that top surface and the frozen ground. And already it's getting slippery. You see 1 or 2 athletes there slipping. That could be interesting on that corner. It's quite a sharp left turn halfway down the slope.
You can almost see the stress on these guys' face. They have to concentrate so much on that section. Axel van Christensen of Denmark, as he was last year in Dublin, in the lead. I don't think he's necessarily trying to pull away from the field, but perhaps this advantage of being able to see these little dips and dives. This is a great first lap off Dean Casey of Ireland, and there goes Rabbi of Norway. He's going to have to put in a monumental effort on this flat section if he wants to get back to the 2 Danes, to Will Barnicott, to Nick Greggs. He's got to get past Dean Casey as well. Rabbi was on the podium last year, but he's not had the best of times there in that first lap.
I know. Danish fans will be hoping for a 1-2, and it's perfectly feasible. Christensen, the defending champion, and Lelesso, the European Junior 5,000 metre champion from last year, took the bronze medal 12 months ago in Dublin, and already this field is pretty stretched out. It's a punishing first lap. They go through with 1 lap done in 4:03. That is pretty quick. And that long lap with 3 to come. Well, there's several acts yet to unfold in this one, but let's just mark that. 4:03 for lap 1. And then you can see the rest of them. Well, plenty of them 15, 20 seconds down already. It has been quick.
They're working together pretty well as a group of 4. Axel van Christensen, he doesn't mind leading. He's probably more of an endurance profile, I think, perhaps, than the other 3 men behind him, particularly Nick Griggs. He's very good over 3K, 1500. Took that gold medal in Tallinn at the Under-20 Championships, over 3,000 metres. So he'd be very happy to bide his time there. Will Barnicott is sort of 5K ilk, but Joel Ibler-Lelesso and Axel van Christensen had a wonderful battle. It's a really historic, established race in Denmark, the Hermitage, 13.3 kilometres. Axel van Christensen took the victory by 2 seconds over Lelesso, but apparently they were both absolutely exhausted. It was a real battle between these two. They've got such a strong rivalry, and they've pushed each other on to be 2 of the best runners in Europe, because they have that advantage of competing against each other domestically. They're going to do the same again today.
Rabi struggling to stay with the pace. That right knee quite heavily strapped. I wonder if that's been compromising his training. Mills goes through there, another of the British squad. And clearly Sam Mills struggling to go anywhere near this front quartet. So they go into the hill for the second time. I'm interested about Joel Ibler-Lelesso. He was 6th in the World Juniors 3,000 metres back in the summer. This summer just gone. But for 5,000, he's run 13:29. And he's 19 years old. That is a mighty impressive time for 12 and a half laps of the track. He's in second place there in the long white sleeves, Lelesso. But the Danes with a fabulous pairing here with the Irishman Griggs and the Brit Barnicott there. The third Dane, by the way, Bjorga
doesn't make it up that hill. That looked like... You can see some of the other competitors just noticing Rabi's on the ground. That you mentioned his knee, Tim. That did almost seem like something went then. It wasn't a slip. It was more of a collapse. That's big there. That's a silver medalist from last year, Abdullahi Dahir Rabi of Norway. That didn't look like he was going to get back on his feet. It didn't look like a stumble. It really looked like he collapsed there. These men will have no idea. The front quartet will have no idea that one of the pre-race favourites could be out of the race already.
That's really sad for the youngster. 19 years old is Abdullahi Dahir Rabi. Clearly he's gone down. He wasn't getting up either. Well, it must be the knee. Out of the building for the second time, out of the castle, and then this swing left. But they are calling the shots at the moment, the Danish pairing. Griggs in the green of Ireland almost slips there. Now this surface, where the sun is breaking through onto it, will get more and more slippery, and I think Rabi will not be the first person to see come a cropper. Let's hope nobody else is seriously injured as they negotiate that left turn in the sun. There was a point in the first lap where we already saw one of this front pack have a bit of a slip and a slide. They're building up a big gap on those behind them.
My heart is in my mouth watching them navigate this. It's similar to the course we saw in Lisbon in 2019. That had some really sharp downhills, and we saw people come off the course when they were going round corners downhill at that speed. But these 4 do seem to be managing it, but they'll be learning. Every lap they do, they'll be learning about the competitors and about themselves, because that looked a little bit hairy for me. Axel van Christensen didn't look as comfortable as he did a lap ago, and he could maybe sense Lelesso and Griggs getting alongside him. And Will Barnicott, at the moment, I don't know if he's just settling 4th place, not getting involved in really up in the bodies in that technical section. But that's as Mark Butler, our statistician who helps us so much before the race and during, has just pointed out, it's much slower second lap. We need to keep an eye on where the lap counter is versus the start line and things like that. But it does look like they're settling into this race.
The second pack, led by Casey and Mills, is 7 seconds down. That's Dean Casey of Ireland, who was 13th last year. He's having a better run today so far. Halfway then in this 4-lap race for the under-20 men, the first race of the day. 4:03 the first lap, 4:30 the second lap, significantly slower. But of course, the blast off from the gun always sees a really quick first couple of minutes. Christensen's still calling the shots. I think Barnicott's well positioned though, Hannah. If I was in his shoes, I'd be pretty happy with the way this is going. You just tuck in there, let the others do the work. You're in their slipstream. If you're going to go to the front like this, you've got to maintain the pressure on those behind you. You've got to keep grinding away, be patient, and hope that they will eventually tire. So for the two Danes, with pretty much half the race to come, they've just got to keep pummeling away and hold this high tempo.
And it's one of those things that leading a race can be stressful. You know everybody's queuing up behind you. The less so for me, he keeps making tiny little moves on Van Christensen. I don't know if that's just to say, don't forget about me, I'm here. But that can start to drain you emotionally. I mean, Axel Van Christensen is going to be so aware of the men around him and to fight that temptation to get sucked into other people's moves. But it does look like they could be slowing ever so slightly. Sam Mills, Dean Casey, Luke Birdseye there, forming their own little group of three. That's going to be very significant in the team standings. If I remind you, from Dublin 2021, Great Britain, Northern Ireland, beating Ireland in the team standings by just 1 point. The Irish men will be desperate to turn the tables on the Brits, but they are starting to close that gap. Sam Mills had a tremendous run at the British trials. He was the only one of the under-20 men that tried to run with the eventual winner, but Will Barnicott, and he's having another good run here today.
Birdseye there in that trio that are chasing hard this quartet, and without any doubt, they're closing. There was a foreshortening effect in that shot we saw a minute or so ago, Hannah, but I reckon these four, while they're moving along really well, have not really maintained the tempo. Look at that, the trio behind are only a few seconds behind. There you can see the attendance being given to Rabi. Poor lad. Really hope that's not a serious injury or a worsening of that knee injury maybe, as the athletes now negotiate this hill for their second time.
And we've lost Van Christensen out of that group of three. Could he have stumbled on the hill as well? I don't think they will have let him pull away. I think that's more likely. We've seen Axel Van Christensen struggle with the terrain there. Let's hope he's still on his feet. You can see there is Van Christensen.
Yeah, Van Christensen, he hasn't got any mud on his knees or anything back in fourth place, so I don't think he's gone down. I think he's just hit a bit of a block there. He's really struggling. The tempo's gone from those legs of the defending champion, and he's being reeled in by this trio.
And I was going to talk about travel issues. Axel Van Christensen had a big old sprint through Paris airport, lost his kit, had to borrow his shoes to train yesterday. I thought that was going to be the worst travel, but the Irish team were due to leave at 2 p.m. on Friday, didn't actually leave till midnight and get here into Italy until 5 a.m. So no excuses there. Nick Briggs has managed to get himself into this top three, but it looks like defending champion Axel Van Christensen is in real trouble. He's dropped totally out of shot here down this penultimate decline. Perhaps Axel Van Christensen might even have pulled out. Cannot see him at all further back on the course.
Well, the Brits beginning to pack well. Sam Mills, who's 153 800-metre runner, English School's 800 metres champion, in fact, last summer. Just 18 years old, in fourth place at the moment. He's having a fabulous run, showing really good stamina and endurance for an 800-metre specialist. He's beginning to ease away, is Mills, in fourth place from the two who were accompanying him. Casey of Ireland, Dean Casey, who was 13th in the World Junior 5000 last summer, the 19-year-old, back in 5th. But Mills is a little isolated now between two groups. He's got to try and close up on this trio and tuck in behind them. 1 lap to go, 13:09. The total time there after 3 laps, Hannah.
So in terms of the team standings, 3 in the top 6 of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, 2 for Ireland. So if everything holds together well here on this final lap, it does look like Great Britain and Northern Ireland could retain their team title. They have a much lower score than the 34 they did last year. But here goes Will Barnicott of Great Britain and Northern Ireland. He did this at the British trials in Liverpool a few weeks ago. He just pushed from the front, pushed and pushed and pushed, and nobody had any answer. Sam Mills, the man in fourth place, was the athlete that got closest to him on that day. And does it look like Joel Ibler-Lelesso perhaps has run maybe a little bit too aggressively, too competitively in those first 3 laps, getting caught up racing with his teammate Axel Van Christensen, who we do think is going to not complete the course here today. But we have Will Barnicott in his 3rd attempt here at the European cross country. He competed in Lisbon back in 2019. He must have been 16 or 17 lived out the pandemic, didn't get to contend under 20 race then, but he's back here. This is his final attempt at this junior men's race, and it could finally be a medal for Will Barnicott. But what colour? Because Nick Griggs is the European under 20 3,000 metre champion. He's got 3:42 1500 metre speed. You've got to fancy the Irishman if this comes down to a sprint finish.
Griggs and Barnicott, Ireland and Great Britain, then into the hill for the final time. Barnicott, 9th last year, having a fabulous run here, coached by Tim Eglin. What a great pairing they have turned out to be. Huge credit to coaches, of course, who prepare their athletes well for this midwinter cross-country. Of course, the European cross-country season beginning now to adopt more and more the American collegiate model, where athletes want to peak around December, January, and then go into the indoor season. The World Cross-Country Championships beckons in Bathurst in late February. Whether or not many European athletes will choose to make that long trip to Australia remains to be seen. But for these two, Hannah, this is turning into a wonderful day at the races. And I wonder who is going to push first, lose their patience and try and break the other, or will one of them just be happy to tuck in? Lilleso just really struggling on that upslope there, the Dane.
I think that bronze medal battle is going to be just as fierce as the gold medal battle. Will Barnicott, for me, did not look as comfortable on these downhills as Nick Griggs did. Here goes Nick Griggs of Ireland. He's making his bid for gold. It's about making sure you're coming through those gates, those doors out of the castle first. I think we were looking at the course yesterday, apparently around about 470 metres when they exit this castle to the finish. It's technical, it's tricky. Nick Griggs at the moment getting himself ahead through these twists and turns, and Dean Casey looks like he separated himself from that bronze medal battle. Could Dean Casey leapfrog all the way back to Will Barnicott, because his cadence and his speed has not carried him off the top of the hill particularly well?
So Griggs then back out into the sunlight, and he has the gap. He's got daylight between himself and Will Barnicott of Great Britain. That is a winning gap. Gliding down the hill there so wonderfully. He dedicated his European junior title in 2021 to his older brother Josh, who had been tragically killed in a road accident 1 month earlier. Well, I'm sure his brother is in his mind now for this Mid-Ulster athlete, coached by Mark Kirk, an 800-metre international himself back in the 80s. And Nick Griggs surely now has got a winning margin.
Just coming off this hill, probably around 200 metres to go. Nick Griggs looks over his shoulder, but he's a 3:42 man. He is a fast 1500 metre runner. Nick Griggs surely is going to have another gear left in this 100 metres. Will Barnicott is going to kick. He's going to give it absolutely everything. But could we see a sensational gold and bronzed Ireland? What a day that would be for the Irish team. What a start. Nick Griggs is kicking hard. Will Barnicott, you can see he's going to drive all the way to the line, but surely he's running out of ground. Nick Griggs stumbles on the icy ground here. He's weaving around. Will Barnicott in the last closing metres snatches the gold medal from Nick Griggs. Dean Casey, a brilliant bronze medal for Ireland, punches the air. Nick Griggs, hands in his head, sitting there to the side of the finish gantry. Sam Mills comes through in 4th. Luke Birdseye in 5th. That's the gold medal for Great Britain and Northern Ireland. But Will Barnicott held his nerve. He never